Welcome to Insatiable, the podcast where we discuss the intersection of food, psychology, and culture.
I look back now at my month ago self, God bless her, and I think, but I was still restricting myself. Like I still saw bread as the enemy. I was still going, this is a good food, this is a bad food. Whereas as I'm thinking about this in terms of macros, food becomes way more neutral for me. And now it's just like, what are the nutritional properties of this? And then it's a choice.
I'm your host, Ali Shapiro, an integrated health coach, 32-year and counting cancer survivor, and have radically healed my relationship with food and my body. And for the past 17 years, I've been working with clients individually, in group programs, and in company settings to do the same. Welcome. The information in this podcast should not be considered personal, individual, or medical advice. Today, we are back with our series, Body Stories, with my dear friend and colleague, Sas Petherick. We started this series about a month ago. I'll include in the show notes our first episode, and the feedback has been so wonderful. So I want to thank all of you for listening. Let us know what you think of this episode, and I want to continue to thank Sas for opening up about her journey. And towards the end of this episode, where we get into updates, we talk about who's really trying the hardest when it comes to health and so many realizations that Sas is having. We talk about some of the emotional stuff that gets in the way of us feeling really great in our bodies, whether we want to lose weight or not. And I want to remind everyone that I am having a course of mine. It's called Your Emotional Eating Blueprint. I am running it in May, so in a couple of days from when this episode first comes out. And it is for people who want to really get to the root of why they fall off track and struggle to be consistent with food. And this program is designed for women who, if you've been struggling with food as long as Sas and I both have, if you find yourself reaching for food when you're stressed, exhausted, or all alone, if you're using GLP-1s, that's Ozempic or Mounjaro, etc., and either want to get off these drugs eventually, or you're experiencing increased anxiety and depression on them, which can often be common because the reasons you turn to food haven't been resolved, or if you notice shifts in your body and metabolism about what used to work no longer does, et cetera, et cetera. If you are willing to do the work around emotional stuff, but you want to work on the right problem, this 4-week course is for you. We're going to unearth the root cause of your frustrating eating, learn how to generate sustainable motivation, and really establish a strong foundation for how to rebuild your eating habits. So I will link in the show notes to this. It's only $97. And if you join before April 30th, this episode is coming out on April 24th. So you've got 6 days to join. You save $30. So it would only be $67. Check out the program for more details. And if you are unsure about if this is for you, I'm offering a free masterclass on the roots of falling off track on Tuesday, April 29th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you go to alishapiro.com/blueprint, you can sign up for that free sneak peek, or you can also register there if you're just ready to do it. But I promise you, this is something you have never heard before, and it really speaks to the holistic and strengthening approach to your relationship to your body instead of damaging your relationship to your body that Sas and I have been traversing in these conversations. So check that out. And again, this is the only time I will be running this program live. It'll be turned into a self-study after that. And there's going to be a real advantage to taking it live because you're going to get to ask the questions you need to ask. And you're going to have me there to really coach you, which is incredible. So it's just a phenomenal value for $97 or $67 if you get in on the early bird. All right. So again, a little bit more about Sas. And I have been friends, over a decade plus. She's the real deal when it comes to coaching. She's a twice certified coach and she has a master's degree in coaching like myself, but hers is from Oxford, right? It sounds so much more formal. And she has worked for over a decade and she has coached hundreds of people around self-doubt and self-belief. So check her out. We'll include a link in the show notes to her. And enjoy today's episode as we catch up with where is Sas a month into this intentional weight loss journey. Take care. Oh, Sas, I have been looking so forward to this. I have gotten so much great feedback from my Insatiable listener. Oh, what have people been saying?
So I've had lots of folks say things like, oh, this is such a nuanced conversation. That seems to be the primary sort of feedback. I've had conversations with people about this process that I'm in that I never kind of expected to have, right? It's kind of opened something up for people. So I'm so excited about our chat today. It's great.
Yeah. So if you're tuning in for the first time on either Courage and Spice or Insatiable, this is Sas and I doing a series of podcasts called Body Stories about the nuances of wanting to genuinely be healthy. And sometimes that includes losing weight. And so how do we talk about that? And I'll link in Insatiable, and I'm sure in Sas's show notes, to our first episode if you want to go back and listen to that. On this, let's kind of kick off with public weight loss, if you don't mind, because you kind of said, talking about this, and you and I were voxing, and we had both listened to this interview that Lizzo had done. And apparently she has she called it, consciously released weight. Is that how she was using?
Yeah, it's like weight release journey or something like that. It's a euphemism for weight loss.
Yes. And though the way that she was talking about it, it sounded like it was like in a really healthy way, but she was kind of getting to the emotional stuff. But public weight loss, this also, while you and I both know some people who had actually excluded me in the past from certain things because I've always been kind of neutral about weight loss. Like if people want to do it, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. But it's like not for me to tell people. And we've seen a lot of the people who, I would say through the years, they're still anti-fat phobic, right? But there were kind of some of the leaders in body positivity. And now they've recently used weight loss drugs or lost a lot of weight. I just want to talk about that. You said, I think either after we stopped talking last time and it was off air, but like a lot of people, those of us who are in more feminist spaces, are like, yeah, love your body. But then like secretly, it's like, but I need to lose 10 or 20 pounds for my health or something like that. So what do you want to say about public weight loss and through the lens of your own opening up of the story?
Yeah. You know, I really felt for Lizzo because I just freaking love her music. And honestly, I just wish we would leave her alone to just make her beautiful music in whatever way she wants to do that. And frankly, her relationship with her body is none of my freaking business. And I felt really angry that that becomes the focus. Even though she obviously volunteered to share that, I just thought, good on you, love, for talking about it, but you do not owe us anything. You don't owe us any explanation for what changes you might have decided to make. I couldn't listen to the whole episode because I can't bear Jay Shetty. I mean, anyone who's read the Guardian article about his real backstory, you might question him. Just another one of those guys that has got great PR. But I would say, like, I think anyone who's losing weight publicly or whose body is commented on publicly, it's just such a shitty place to be. Like, it's one of the aspects of our culture that I really just can't deal with. Most stuff I can let wash off me, but this does like really rile me up. And I guess it's in the zeitgeist right now because, you know, GLP-1s have allowed people to take action around weight loss in I guess in just a more noticeable way. And so, you know, the headlines become, you know, was it Ozempic? When actually it's such a boring question. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Pissed.
Yeah. And for everyone, Lizzo didn't say she used GLP-1s in this interview or anything, but I actually did a whole Insatiable episode, and I'll link it in the show notes. It was called Ozempic, Oprah, and Our Outrage. And it was actually, you know, in our last episode and in the work that you and I both do, developmental work, I talked about how we have these very good and bad binary ideas, right? Of like, so for so long, it was so good to lose weight and be thin at any cost. And then we had the much needed, wait a second, there's a lot of toxicity around diets. And in our last episode, I talked about, I think it's toxic when it's thin at any cost. But the moderate middle and having that flexible thinking is like, oh, these people. And again, I think this is probably the problem when we see people as brands, because brands are supposed to be consistent, right? And people are more dynamic and can evolve and change, especially as we age and we may need to reconsider the weight loss conversation. But I was like, a lot of the outrage, it was like, said the same thing about Oprah. I'm like, let Oprah be. Part of the outrage is people being like, oh, am I bad now because I'm not losing weight, right? Because for so long, I was told it's good to just love yourself as you are and all this stuff. And so that's what I'm doing. And now, am I bad? Versus like, the answer isn't good or bad. It's like, what is right for you in this moment in time? And I think that's what gets really lost in all of these conversations is we think people doing something with their body means something about us when it's about them.
And I think the thing that I've noticed as well is that for folks who do decide they want to consciously release their weight, or however you want to describe it, that there is this kind of redemption arc that gets applied as well. You then have to do the confessional story of how you were miserable, or, your body wasn't, you might have put on a happy face, but actually deep inside, there's that kind of hero's journey sort of redemption arc thing. And then the reveal of the princess after the fairy godmother has stepped in. Like, there's a lot of that kind of like fairy tale narrative that gets applied to this, and I see this so much on social media because I'm quite openly sharing what I'm doing, because I've shared about everything, and why stop here? I've been oversharing on the internet for far too long to stop now, but I'm now getting kind of bombarded with images of women who have lost a lot of weight with the before and after photo. Like, that is the main way you do it. And it's usually set to Benson Boone's song, Beautiful Things, which I love that song. But it's this kind of like, now I'm beautiful. When I just think, stop it. Stop doing that. Like, it's none of our business. And also, I kind of love that women are just going, yeah, man, I did this amazing thing. And, so I have paradoxical kind of feelings about it. What I don't love is the judgment that comes in. And so you can never, ever read the comments here. And I just think it's so disturbing to me how we all think we should have an opinion on someone else's body. And I think about this when I think of like friends who are non-binary or who are kind of gender fluid, who are playing with their gender expression, those who are trans. It's like, your body is none of my business. Like, dude, I just want you to be the most fullest expression of yourself, however that looks. It's literally none of my business. And I think that's the healthiest way to see it. Just stop worrying about other people's bodies.
Yeah. I think it's because, and this is the part of, I think, thing that body positivity, health at every size was really great about, was like, it's like this hero story happens because it's like, now I'm worth something, right? It's like where we intertwine weight and worth. And it's like, that's where we have to separate. It's not this hero's journey, because ultimately, the only thing that changes, in my opinion, don't get me wrong, it feels great to feel strong in your body. And I want to get to some of the insights you've had in your journey, but things aren't changing because you're thin. It's because you're taking risks now, right? When I set out to lose my postpartum and menopausal weight, and people were like, well, how were you so neutral about it? I was like, because I knew nothing in my life was going to change. Like, I had done that work 15 years ago. And so it wasn't this, there was no hero's journey. It was just like, just get up and do the boring thing, because nothing in my life was going to change, And again, I do feel better in my clothes. I can sleep better. I have less joint pain, but it wasn't the fairy tale that I thought was going to happen in my 20s, which I'll never forget. It was part of building a business, and I was in Philadelphia, and I was like really struggling with something in business building, because it's hard. And I was like, oh my God, I used to think if I was thinner, I wouldn't have to figure out this hard thing. And I was like, I lost that illusion. Like, the illusion is gone. Like, the hard thing's going to happen no matter what I weigh. That's a whole other discussion. But I think that's part of what we have to, in public discourse, be like, this is not a hero's journey. Maybe the outsides are different, but it's like, ultimately, what's different is maybe you're taking more risks because you're calling it more confidence or you feel something, but it's not the weight loss that has done that. Maybe that's 10% of it, but the 90% is you just showing up as a commitment to yourself. And this is what your work is around self belief, and this is what we really do in my work of like, how do I create safety so I can take the risks I want? So,
Yeah, I love that. I think that's why I'm finding this whole thing really anticlimactic. Like you've put some words to that are some feelings that I've been having. Like, oh, at the end of the day, this is kind of just math and consistency. Like,
yeah. Well, so that's one of the things I want to talk to you about because one of my former clients, she DM'd me and she's like, I'm loving your and Sas's conversation. And she had talked about how she loved how you said, oh, this is about devotion, not discipline. And I was like, yes, I'm so glad Sass said that because I talked about that a lot. And in our culture, discipline is about control, right? That's how I think most people define it. But devotion is, I loved how you said in your reel, it's like, oh, it's showing up even when it's basically like boring or like I don't want to do it. So can you talk a little bit about that insight you've had for people?
I'm so happy to. I think this is at the key of it all is I think you're right. Discipline is about control. I think devotion is about love, right? It's about loving myself enough to know when I'm opting out and I don't need to, like those days where you just can't be asked. And so one of the things that's happened since we last talked is I realized mostly through the conversations we've been having on Voxer that there's a lot about this that I just don't know. Like I think I have a false sense of understanding about bodies, how it works, like what I need to do. Like I was like, really? Do I? Like, do I know what I'm doing here? And I thought I need to ask for some help. Like I think I need help. And I think mostly because it felt very piecemeal. I felt like I was eating healthy, but I didn't really know if I was. I can be seduced. Like I fell for so many April Fool's stories this year. Like I can be seduced quite easily because I'm so bloody trusting. So I can be influenced, and I recognize that was sort of throwing me off. And I'm like, oh, should I be worried about this? But man, if you open that door, people will tell you that drinking water is a bad thing. So don't listen to the influencers, is what I would say. So I thought, I think I need an expert. I actually want support and I want someone to guide me. So I was very clear that I want someone who understands the food stuff because that is quite a big deal for me. I have a really healthy relationship with my body, but my relationship with food tends to edge towards emotional eating. And I love food, so it's a celebration and it's just a complex relationship. And I really wanted to educate myself more around that. Plus, I'm so bamboozled by the whole macro carb is bread evil question. And I also don't really know how to progressively train. Like I can probably put a workout together, but then after 6 weeks, what do I do? So I've started working with my trainer, Sarah, who is based in the UK, and we have daily contact. I send her form videos of my workouts. She sends me video feedback. It is so supportive. I can message her anytime. I have an app where I'm tracking my weight each morning, like I weigh in each morning, and she tracks the average loss over the week, which I think is such a smart way of tracking weight loss. I have macros that she has set up for me. I have 3 workouts that I interchange and I work out 3 times a week and I am getting in 7,000 steps a day. Plus I have to drink like 2 liters of water. So I've got these 5 goals that I need to meet each day, which I know sounds a lot, but the dopamine hits from ticking that little box on the app and knowing that is tangible kind of outward sign of my devotion to creating this body that I really believe is in there somewhere, right? And so this whole process has taught me that like devotion is awkward. Like I needed a guide, and asking for help is not my favorite. I'm a pretty self-reliant cat, I'm pretty good at that. but I'm so glad I've done it. And we're about a month in, and a couple of things have happened. One is I injured my back because I got a bit ambitious and lifted a kettlebell that was too heavy and strained my lower back. And I was so upset with myself for doing that. And also, I felt like, oh no, this is the thing that will stop everything, right? Like that all or nothing approach. And Sarah gave me another workout to do that was no weights. It was just body weight. So I could do it at home, and some stretches to do in the evenings, which I've been doing ever since. So now I have like an evening stretching practice. My back is fine. I went back to the gym within a week yesterday, and I just did the same workout, and I'm absolutely fine this morning. So I'm learning through having that guide, I'm learning like how to flex with my life, how to flex when stuff happens. And I think that psychological flexibility is the key to all of this. Even though I know what I know, I still go down that all or nothing path so easily. It's like, oh, well, fuck it, chuck it. That happens so fast. And having Sarah there has made all the difference.
Oh, you said so much good stuff. I mean, for everyone listening, psychological flexibility is the core of SAS and my mind work. I'm not English. I don't think I said that correctly, but yeah. And that's the ability to not be black and white, all or nothing, either or. And when you were talking about that, it made me think of devotion. And you said it's loving myself. And I think to kind of even maybe put a more fine point tip around that, love is like meeting yourself where you are, right? Not these expectations of like, I need to be perfect or I'm never going to injure myself and I think that's why so many plans fail is because, again, we talked in the last episode about like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I might have a false sense of what works for me. So let me outsource my authority to the internet. But we're also outsource it when we think like, even when we're being good, like, oh, if I follow this perfectly, right? Like I'm going to get the result. And to me, part of devotion is like, yes, there are certain things we can't control, but how do we respond when things are out of our control? Like you injuring your back was out of your control. And especially in midlife and beyond, like your sleep might be out of control. Where your hormones are fluctuating might be out of control. You may be caregiving and can't get to the gym that day or something. And so devotion and that love to me is like, how do you show up in that flexibility when things aren't going the way that you thought they would? I love that you said it's made all the difference. And I love that your trainer gave you adjustments for you, but also for people listening. Like I often tell my clients around food and exercise, part of how you get out of all or nothing is you focus on momentum. Because we often think consistency means I have to do the same thing every day to be consistent or the same plan. And it's like, no, 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 no. How do you just keep yourself from becoming inert? Right? Like, and that could mean you're going out to a party. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna eat as healthy as I normally do. But for me, I know I need some animal protein, try to get some veg in, and then I can be moderate with sugar. So then my sleep isn't fucked up. So then the next day I'm not like, when I used to binge, it would be like, oh, like, oh my God, it takes like 3 days to rebound from that. But with exercise, because I struggle with my sleep, it's like, okay, you may not feel like moving today, but like just walk so that like one, your sleep gets better that night. Hopefully walking, I really figured out helps me sleep, but also so the next day you're not coming from this like, oh, I have to start up all over again.
That
So
sluggishness. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to offer that to you and people listening.
Totally. And can I just share like the most shocking thing that Sarah said to me right at the start? Because I think I said in the last episode, I've been tracking all of my food in an app, and she has access to that. And the first thing she said to me was, okay, so we're going to whack your daily calories up by about 500. And I was like, we're going to what now? Like, seriously, I was really shocked. She said, you are undernourished. You're eating good food. Like, don't get me wrong. She said, you're eating whole foods. Like, that's great. You're having treats every now and then. It's all good. But you need more and you particularly more protein. And I'm like, oh my God, the rumors are true. We do need to eat so much protein. I think that was so interesting to me. And I remember texting you going, 1,750 calories a day. Does this sound right to you? Like, because I feel like that was dangerous. That was a real risk.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because, yeah, I wrote that down. I wanted to bring that up too because you were like, I still don't trust it, but I'm going to do it. And what's the drum roll? I mean, how has it felt to have 1,750 calories a day?
Well, I'm not hungry anymore, Ellie.
Get out.
And I think I said on the last thing, I was playing with intermittent fasting because I wasn't hungry in the mornings. Turns out your whole circadian rhythm changes when you're actually moving and eating, and sleeping well. Like I'm now waking up going, right, let's get those eggs on for brekkie, and I feel so much more energy right through the day. So I think she was right. I probably was undernourished. So and I'm like 5'6.5", and I weigh nearly 100 kilos. I'm trying to get to about 70, just to be really transparent. So 1,750 calories a day. When I kind of Googled it, because I really didn't trust this, is about right. It's like, cool. This is really good. And what I just love is that I don't get the afternoon slump, and I know you do some beautiful work around that afternoon craving time and how to sort of better take care of yourself so that that doesn't happen. So you don't feel like you're going to kind of fall apart at 3 p.m. I literally just would put decisions off to the next day because I didn't trust myself in the afternoons. I'm so much more energized consistently through the day. I feel hungry at the right times. But what I'm also noticing is that the devotion piece is really extending to how I'm planning out what I'm going to eat and preparing that food, knowing that, I'm going to hit my macros today and I'm going to get to tick the little box and get that little hit. But this is all adding up, right? So over the month since I've been working with Sarah, we're aiming to lose about between 2 and 5 kilos a month. So around about 5 pounds is a
Thanks for doing the math. I was like, what
yeah,
does that
sorry
mean?
for all of our American listeners who haven't quite gone metric yet. Yeah, so it's about 5 pounds a month. Well, that's what's happening. And I'm delighted with that because it's so predictable. Like I feel like, oh, my body is this beautiful ecosystem that I'm now working with. All of the parts are working together. I feel like I can just really trust my body.
On our first episode, I talked about how diet culture is be thin at all costs. And the understandable backlash to that was still built on this idea that weight loss is toxic, right? And I was saying there's this third way where weight loss can be really reparative and loving towards yourself. And you describing that is the perfect example of that. Of like, I was under eating and you love your work. I wasn't able to make good decisions. I had to put it off. And oh my God, I'm under eating. I'm undernourishing my body. No wonder I was hungry. And then I don't trust myself around food. All of this stuff cascades because you had this false assumption that 1,200 calories a day was what you needed to be eating when that wasn't even giving your body what it needed to, like, I call it keep the lights on, right? Like to like feel your best. And this is what I'm talking about. Like so many people think, especially women, think that they have to undereat, which then causes all this other stuff that they can't live the way they want to live. And this is how weight loss, when you really get clear on it, it's often you're going to have to nourish yourself holistically in so many ways than you never have. And it can be even you getting support, right? I was laughing, you made me think of in my Truths with Food group this round. In further episodes, we'll probably get deeper into the emotional aspect of the work I do. But one woman's like, I hate that there's people involved with this. Like I hate that we have the people to get to eat well. And I was like, yeah, that's part of health, like being interdependent and needing people. But that's what it reminded. But you getting support of like quality support, not the internet, right? I mean, we could even look at like depth psychology of like, oh my God, the unreliable authority that we're we're going to for support instead of someone who can care and love for us. I just want everyone to like really hear that, like you're not hungry. And when you told me you were intermittent fasting, I know everyone responds to things differently. And I know sometimes people can benefit. Like, I think there's like healing diets and then maintenance diets, and not like diet traditionally, but like sometimes they call it like metabolically busted or something, right? Like maybe keto or intermittent fasting can help them for like 4 to 6 weeks, but then they need to get off of it. So, but then maintenance wise, you want to be eating breakfast. But when you said that you were like feeling really good with that, and I was like, sometimes people think they're feeling good because they get what I call the juice cleanse high, which is like, I'm not eating enough. So my blood sugar is tanking. So it's pumping out cortisol. And I'm like, hi.
I think I had a bit of that. I think I had, and also I think just feeling like, oh, this is the thing, right? But I look back now at my month ago self, God bless her, and I think, oh, but I was still restricting myself, right? Like I still saw bread as the enemy. I was still kind of like going, oh, this is a good food, this is a bad food. Whereas as I'm thinking about this in terms of macros, food becomes way more neutral for me. That's what I've seen. And now it's just like, what are the nutritional properties of this? And then it's a choice. So it does come down to some math, you know? Sorry if this is jargon, but macros are just those macronutrients, right? So carbs, protein, fat, and there's different nutritional values to each of those different types of macronutrient. And the micronutrients are all the other stuff that gets in the middle, but they don't have as much calorific value. So we don't tend to worry about those in terms of managing weight loss and all of that jazz. But just making that kind of connection in my mind, like, oh, okay, if I have this and I have this with it, oh, then I'm going to feel really full. I'm going to feel quite satiated, you know? So I think there's something about just learning those basic things and really understanding what that actually translates to in my body, how I'm going to feel. I think that has made a huge difference. So now I'm like, I'm going to have a piece of bread. Totally. I love bread. The idea of never having bread again makes me cry. Like, I'm so sad about that. And I'm so sad about past me who believed that it was naughty to have pastries or whatever. And whereas Sarah's approach is, if you're going to have something that is highly calorific, make sure it's something you really want, right? Just enjoy it. Then it's like pleasurable and you get the joy factor of it. And how great is that? And I think that approach is really just, again, helping with that flexibility.
What Sas is talking about, everyone, too, with the macros, which are fat, carbs, and protein, is that essentially balances your blood sugar. And most people, I think it's changed with CGMs. You don't even need a CGM. I mean,
What's a CGM?
oh, it's a continuous glucose monitor. They're all the rage in the States. But what people don't realize is that your stress really influences your blood sugar. So they may think it's the banana that's spiking my blood sugar when it's because you're running out the door and you don't have enough time to eat and you have a meeting with your boss. So they can be helpful, I think, in the short term, sometimes to kind of get some awareness if you have none.
They're not essential.
No, 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 no. And again, people have to, I think about when they're looking at interventions, like, is this data going to make me feel more shame and I don't know how to change it? Or because then sometimes people are like, oh my God, my blood sugar is so high when I eat carbs, and not realizing, like, okay, so eat a little protein beforehand and you're going to be fine. But there's a couple things I want to pop out that you're saying is that when you learn macros and what you need, this is how I teach it in my Freedom from Cravings and Truth with Food program, but you're essentially learning the structure, what macros will keep you satiated. And this is how these GLP-1 drugs work, right? They target satiation. They're not magically making you lose weight. They're just saying to your brain and your body, you're satisfied. And that's what your blood sugar does. And so when you learn the percentage of macros that you need, you have the structure to feel satiated, but then you have the flexibility to fill that in whatever way you want. So say you're going out to dinner, you know that you do better with animal protein. That's a big thing in my framework. I help clients figure out, like, do I do better with animal protein, plant protein, or a mix? And so if you're going out to dinner, you don't have to like plan it a week in advance. That night you can say, what am I feeling like? I know I need protein. Maybe I want the fish. Maybe I want the steak. But you have the flexibility to choose that based on what you're in the mood for. And then over time, intuitively, you're going to crave what's going to make you feel more satiated. But intuition is based on patterns. It's not instincts. So you have to have, to Sass's point, like I had this like false assumption I knew what worked for me. But that's part of learning flexibility, I think, is learning those macronutrients. And that's why I teach macros too, because it gives you the flexibility, but enough structure that you're going to feel satiated.
Totally. Technology now is so great. Like, I literally just use an app. Sarah has calculated my percentages each day, and I just try and hit those, like within that calorie limit. It's like, it really is just math. And then we bring all our feelings to it all.
Yes, yeah, but I love the feelings. That's my special.
Yeah, totally.
But I do want to, like, it is math, but it's also counterintuitive math. So you were talking about like 1,750 calories. And for people to get an understanding, I'm only 5'4.5". I'm pretty active, and I need around 2,200 calories a day to maintain my weight. Okay. And so these are higher numbers than you're probably listening. And what I said back to Sass, was she was like, oh, that makes sense, is when you think you need 1,300 calories a day to lose weight, what actually happens is your body adapts, and your metabolism, which again is not an organ. I used to think it was just this organ in the body somewhere, but it's your overall like energy exchange. Your body's going to say, oh shit, like there's not a lot of energy coming in. So then it will adapt to your body only needing 12 or 1,300 calories a day. And so then what's happening is you start normalizing, I'm exhausted. Oh my God, I have this, I can't recover well from my workouts. I have anxiety, right? And I'm not saying all these things aren't independent of what you eat always. But I was saying to Sass, when you're trying to lose weight, you want to eat as many calories as possible and still be in a deficit so that your metabolism is still, the fire is still running, so that when you want to stop losing weight, to maintain, and I'm sure Sass's coach is going to do this, as she gets closer and closer to what she, reaches her goal, she'll probably ratchet up the calories more so that you gradually ratchet them up. And that's what a lot of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I mean, I still remember doing this, like, okay, and I could get away with this when I was 14 and didn't have any stress or had all the hormones in the world. It was like, I'm going to cut down to 1,200 calories. But then you think you have to maintain that when really you're just crashing your system. And that is how weight loss is damaging, because you don't have the energy. You don't have the life force you need to live a really good life. So I just wanted to add that.
I love that. And that is very much like with my coach. One of the reasons why I wanted to work with her particularly is she's like, look, we're just going to go through this fat loss stage, but it's just a stage. At the end of that, we then want to get you kind of reverse dieting, basically, is what she calls it. And that's where you start exactly what you're saying, ramp up the calories a bit more until we find a happy medium where whatever workouts you're doing matches, maintaining your weight loss. And she said, and then you graduate and then you just go off and do this for yourself, right? Like, she's like, I just want to be in your life during this fun time where we go through this process together. And I just think that, to me, is the bit that has always been missing whenever I've tried any other diet or food regime, anything like that. It's always been, and now we lock you in for life. And there's no escape. Weight Watchers is the Hotel California. It's like you are literally like going to have that app, right? For the rest of your life. And it is just an app. It isn't any of the emotional support, all of the other stuff that goes into it. So, I love that these things work for folks. And please know, I'm not saying none of this has value, but I just think that I believe women are chronically undernourished.
It's a metaphor, man, if I've ever heard one.
Totally. And going through this process has opened my eyes so much to all of the BS that's around what it means to be really healthy. you must be fed up with my foxes. I'm like, Ellie, did you know this? Yes.
I love it. I'm like, take me to church, Sas. Like, I like I loved in our last episode, you're like, what radicalized me because when I found this, and again, I just found it earlier because I was in more chronic distress, I think. It's like I tell people, it's like I just happened to, I had cancer at 13 and all that stuff, but it was like the more you unpack this, the more you're like, oh, it's not me. It's like everything I've been fed, like metaphorically, right? And it's so liberating because you can give the shame and the guilt and the lack of self-trust back to the people who sowed the chasm in the first place. And that brings me up to one of the things that you said, and I want to circle back to the emotional support with Ash, but this is one of the big realizations or things that you shared in Voxer was you were doing this race. And you remember? And you like didn't want to be there. I loved it. And I want to get into a little bit of some of the stories because that's the work I do with people, but some of the story around sport and who's athletic, who's not, who's sporty, and all those things. But you were talking about how in this race, we tend to think the people who are the fittest or the thinnest, right? We tend to think they're trying the hardest. And you were like, I'm realizing that the people who come in last, the people who are at the back, they're the ones who are trying the hardest. Like they're the ones dealing with I'm not going to get the prize. I'm not first place, but I'm showing up. They're the ones devoted, right? And it started this conversation between us. And this actually came up in my group yesterday because so many of my clients, one of the big pains for them is that their body size, society thinks they're undisciplined, right? And again, because our puritanical culture values discipline. And I was like, often people who are thin, they're the least disciplined. They're working the least hard because their genetics, their biology, it just is like, and those of us who have struggled, we're often working the hardest and we're often trying the most. So I just wanted to like unpack that a little bit because I think that realization you had and you always say it in a funny way. So no pressure.
It was a race, or it was called Round the Bays, and it happens every year here. And we literally walk like 8 kilometers, which is, I don't know, 5 miles around the bays of Auckland City where I live. And it's beautiful. It's like a real community thing. There's lots of musicians and different like community groups come out along the sides and cheer everybody on, and it's kind of fun. They have runners going first and then joggers and then the walkers. And Ash, my husband, who has run a marathon and is very fit and loves this kind of thing, loves a bit of community walking, set off and enrolled us to do Round the Bays. And I was like, okay, have you now? And on the ferry on the way over to the start of the race, I was like, I do not want to be here. And I was having this real I was so in my head about it. I was like, I do not feel like walking 8 kilometers. Am I just doing this to please him? What if I say I'm just going to get on the ferry and go home and not do this? How will I feel? Like I was so in my head about it. And I hadn't eaten anything that day because I was still doing the whole, no breakfast thing. So I was hungry and a bit emotional and just did not want to be there. And Ash was just like, okay, well, we'll just walk up and see how you feel. He's very he's very much an optimist about these things. He's like, shall I get you a banana? Would you like a banana? I was like, yes, I really would. So anyway, I had something to eat. We did the walk. And usually if I'm walking, I will listen to a podcast because that helps me stay out of my body or out of the discomfort of being sweaty and uncomfortable and exercising as someone in a heavier body. It's never been a particularly pleasurable experience. My headphones died within half an hour. I swear to God, I charged them the night before. So now it's the worst case scenario. I'm outside in the sun. There's too much noise, too many people. I don't want to be there. There's nowhere else to go except forward. And my headphones aren't working. So I have to be really aware of what is happening. And it was so interesting to me how I had to be in my body and really present with the discomfort of it all. And after a while, I was just like, right, let's just get it over with. Let's just keep on going. Like I really got into that kind of stoicism place of, okay, just one foot in front. Let's look for the next sign, in every kilometer they let you know. And what I noticed was I started watching the people around me, and I was in the walkers group and towards the back, and there was a lot of people there who were in bigger bodies, who were high-fiving each other and a little bit, and also like kind of just getting through it. And I just thought, oh my God, like, and this makes me a bit emotional, but I just thought, we're the brave ones. Like we're the ones that don't find this easy and probably aren't enjoying it and are really annoyed by all of the overstimulation. And yet we're here doing it for some reason where we think this will be good for us. And it just occurred to me, like, why do they give the medals to all the people up the front who won the genetic lottery, who find running easy and have, a fast metabolism? Like, that's privilege that, you didn't do anything for that. Like, it just happened. You won that genetic lottery. For those of us who have not got that, who actually earn every single muscle and, fitness point, it's like, this is not simple or easy. And I don't know, it really affected me. I just thought, yeah, I'm so happy to be walking with these people, this brave group of people who are doing this, even though it's hard. It just felt like, yeah, we're winning. In the grand scheme of things, like, we're going to win. Yeah, oh gosh, it really does make me emotional. And, one of the things that I've been doing is Park Run, which is a 5-kilometer community walk or run every Saturday morning. It happens all around the world. It's totally free to attend. Ash has been doing it for years. He's got like his 100 Park Runs t-shirt. And I've done 13 now. For 3 months I've been going. And it's such a lovely experience of that. And I'm always kind of near the back. But one of the things I love about Park Run is that there is always a tail walker. So a volunteer who volunteers to come last. And I just think that really heals something in me from high school runs and all of that crap where coming last was the worst thing you could ever be. And I'm just so touched that Park Run have thought of that. Gosh, I'm all over the place today. But it just feels so important. No one comes last. Someone volunteers to do that.
I mean, I feel emotional because don't hate me, but I've always kind of been sporty. It doesn't mean I haven't struggled.
I'm amazed we're friends.
I did. And I should say, but it makes me think about why I care about people being healthy so much, because I've had to fight so hard for it. But this to me is what's healthy, is where you can be with that emotion and see what it opens up in you.
Yes.
And you're not all over the place. I'm following you 100%. One of the things I know, and this may be a nice bridge for next time, but what I want to just start to plant some seed is you talking about on that ferry and how you didn't want to be there and all this stuff, right? And in my work, and you would call it the same thing in your work under the domain of self-doubt and stuff, but I would call that protective resistance, because you were just sharing about how that walk healed something in you from high school or from your early days of what sport meant. And so I want to talk a little bit, and again, we can just plant some seeds and maybe next time, but like, what is the story that is starting to change for you around fit people, unfit people, or sporty? Because I know that a lot of my clients, and I know a lot of listeners, can identify as that outsider, right? As the person who at some point, whether, me, it was being bullied really badly. Then it was also cancer makes you feel very much out of place when you're 13. But one of the things we were boxing about and kind of joking with our friend Jack, who is amazing, is we're like, Sass, are you going to become like Sporty Spice? Be careful, like you or all your friends are going to be at the gym. But it opened up this thing of like part of why there's so much emotion. It's not just the walk or just that you didn't have the banana, although always go with food and. But can you share people kind of some of the things that you're realizing have made you feel like athletics isn't for me or exercise isn't for me or some of the resistance around things of like what the story is there?
It reminds me so much of growing up in a house where there was a role that I was given as the smart kid, and my brother was the sporty kid. He was quite a talented soccer player and played like representative level at quite a young age. And him and I would kick a ball around in the garden for hours, and I was better than him for quite a while. But back in the 80s, as soon as you turn 12, you have to play, you can't play with the boys anymore. So that got kind of cut off from me. So I never really played competitively, but I absolutely tackle. I knew all his moves. I could tackle him. Like I could read the ground. I kind of knew what was going on because I've had this heart condition for my whole life. Like I could read from a very young age. Like I went to school at 4.5 and I was reading. And so I was kind of given that label as the smart kid because of that. And then it was almost like, so you don't get to do anything else, maybe, like that isn't for you. And then during my kind of 8 to 12 years, I was all right. I was pretty fit and I was pretty like a normal kid. I didn't really have any complications or anything like that. But then during my teenage years, I think because soccer got cut off from me and I didn't really want to do anything else. I played netball for a while, but I don't know, girls are different. It was way more fun getting on the field with the boys. So I think I've grown up with the story that, I don't get to have that. I'm the smart one, so I can have that. So I was like a librarian at school, at lunchtimes and stuff like that. I've just never allowed the idea of athleticism, sportiness, all of that really into my identity, even though I always played goal shoot as at netball. I was always a really good shot. I have good hand-eye coordination, good foot-eye coordination. I know that. So I'm always like, oh my God, we play professional athletes a squillion pounds because they've got good hand-eye coordination. Are you freaking serious? So there is something for me about not allowing that into my identity too much because almost like you can't have everything, right? And now what I'm finding is actually I can do this on my terms. I'm never going to go to like exercise classes where someone yells at you and you all kind of get super sweaty. Like that may literally kill me. Like I've got to really watch my heart rate. But for me, going to the gym, strength training in a slow, deliberate way is so fun to me. I get so much joy from it. And because I'm eating enough, I have the energy for it, which is kind of fun. So I think what's shifting for me is walking counts, and I'm quite good at that. I can do that very happily. Strength training counts, and I really enjoy that. So what's shifting is I'm finding ways to add in movement that I really enjoy. And that kind of by proxy, it's like, well, you're an active person now. I've had to, move up the boxes from sedentary to lightly active to moderately active. That's kind of, and I guess I am, right? But I think what's shifting for me a lot is the story that I don't get to have that or that isn't part of me. It's like, no, I'm letting that in. I bought a t-shirt the other day that said, be kind and lift heavy. And I wore it to the gym and I just thought, oh yeah, that's interesting. Like it feels like that's a true kind of part of my identity now. That's me. There is something that's gently opening up around all of this.
I love that. And you said on my terms because your clients and my clients will recognize that as self-authoring. Like, I'm going to do this my way. One more thing about that, because, do you care to share about kind of your early experiences with your dad in sport as well, overlaying that on top of what you just shared?
Yeah, well, my dad is an ardent soccer fan. He's from the northeast of England, and moving us all to New Zealand, his connection to home was through watching his football team, And, he was in his 20s when he moved to New Zealand. So I imagine, all of that kind of connection to home and belonging for him, it was partly through his football team. And so a lot of my memories with my dad growing up are about him prioritizing that connection for him. So whenever the FA Cup was on, that was always at like 2 a.m. in New Zealand time. And so he would invite all of the amateur football team that he played with to watch the FA Cup at our house. And so my mum would like bake steak and oyster pies. That was the tradition. God knows where that comes from. For 20 men who would be drunk in the living room, cheering loudly, watching the football. And we weren't allowed out. We weren't allowed to kind of come in. It was like dad's time kind of thing. So that would happen every year. And we'd also have like our whole kind of Saturdays would be taken up with dad's football. So he would go and play. Mum would often be working. She was a nurse, so she worked shift work. And when she wasn't off, we would have to go to the game with dad and basically just sit on the sidelines and watch. But I knew he didn't really want us to be there. He just wanted to hang out with his friends, I mean, you just know that as a kid. The game wasn't so bad. It was after the game they would all get together and they had a like social club and they would drink and be blokes together. Back in the 80s, feminism had not touched New Zealand at that time, I wouldn't say in any great degree. And the kids were all kind of piled off with some, bottles of Coke and some chips to kind of go and sit somewhere or be somewhere else, So there was this very kind of clear definition for me that when it came to my dad socializing, I needed to be there. I had to be there. There wasn't anywhere else I could be. And I was so unwelcome. So there was this real kind of like, I grew to really hate football. I think because I couldn't really extend that into hating my father, although, I've had periods where I've come pretty close to that. We're in a pretty good place now, but it's taken a long time for me to almost forgive him for being a young man trying to figure out childcare. I mean, essentially that's what it was, and doing a really imperfect job of that. But I think, being around drunk men, sporting events, all of that actually gives me a really visceral response. Like I can't do it. I don't ever want to be around that energy. It feels incredibly dangerous to me. I don't have memories of anything ever happening, but it's the threat of something. It's that anticipation that this is getting out of control. There are no grown-ups in the room. That kind of feeling, no one will protect me. That feeling was very alive for me. And so it still is. So there's some kind of traumatic memories of all of that. And I think that got mushed up with football and therefore sport in general. And therefore I don't want to be part of that because that feels really icky to me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's important for people to realize when Sas was on that ferry being like, I don't want to do this, I feel stuck, right? Part of this was her story of whenever we feel under threat, right? We can say it's about our body size, but it's deeper than that. It's whenever we feel under threat, we create sides. So there's me and them, right? So it's like, I'm not sporty, even though Sas is active, right? Like walking counts. She can do this on the same terms, but this is the emotional work that has to happen. Is you have to realize, like, what am I reacting to that's rooted in the past? And it makes sense. It's not to say that didn't happen, right? This is why I love the work Sas and I do. There's no magical thinking required. It's like, oh my God, no wonder, but some of that discomfort, and this is what I work on with clients of in your body is based on a story that may or may no longer be true and that has to evolve. And I just think that's so important because you said the word identity is that we get in these identities of, well, I love food more than other people, or I'm out of control around food versus no, this is all protective mechanisms. And you have to be willing to question those identities to really get the momentum that SAS has started to get. So I appreciate you sharing that because I think it's such a great example of how and because you do this work, you are so easily able to see it and articulate it. And it's okay if you're listening and you're like, but I just wanted to start to plant some seeds because this is the work that I love doing. And this is what unlocks so much for people. So they can start to shift that identity and realize that, hey, being athletic is someone who moves their body. It's not, it's not, it's not who gets the medal or whatnot. So thank you for sharing and doing this work and pulling back the kimono. So I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of ahas.
It feels really healing to walk into all of those stories that I've probably, I've been able to protect myself from all of them by just not bothering to be athletic, right?
Right. But saying and I liked how you said this, right? It's like, "Oh, I'm not that," right? So then we judge people or we may be afraid of being judged at the gym because I have some clients who are afraid to go to a gym, right? Because they're like, "I'm gonna be judged," or whatever. And we experiment in small ways, but I'm like, I think this is coming from, once we do their story work and everything, it's like, is that coming from like 7th grade? I just think that's really important because I think it's a God-given right to feel good in your body and move your body and it feel good. So, which reminds me even how you shared how you were walking and you unlocked something for your book. And it's like, yes, when we can start connecting movement to more creativity, better sleep, things that are on our own terms and for us and not just about weights, so much magic happens. So
I'm so glad we're having these conversations too, Ellie. It feels like I think I resist the sharing of the messy middle bit, like everyone. It's like that's the montage scene in the movie that we just want to be over with.
the muddle.
Right. But I think actually my hope is, and the feedback we've had so far, which has been amazing, and please do let us know how you're finding these conversations. But I think there's something about sharing the messiness of this middle bit that is really helpful, just to kind of see what's going on underneath it all rather than just the before and the after. Like so much goes on between those two photos that is important. I think these are important conversations to have.
I think the messy middle is people want to skip over that, which is why if you follow up with those before and after, they don't last. But the messy middle is where you reclaim these parts of yourself that you thought you had to originally thought weren't welcome. So this is the good stuff. So we'll be back in about a month. I'm just going to plug for anyone listening. If you're interested in this more emotional work, I have the most accessible, we're talking $97, your emotional eating blueprint to really understand that this food stuff, the emotional side of the food stuff, that it will help you really understand the root cause, which in my work is about safety and belonging. And we've touched on some of that today, but to really understand what's coming up for you today, it's a 4-week course. In May, I'll be teaching it live. Again, only $97. And if you join before April 30th and type in early bird, you save $30. So it's $67. And if you really want to change your eating habits and get on a solid foundation, this will make everything you're doing go further. And it will also save you a lot of time, money, and going down the wrong track and doing a lot of work for little rewards. So I'll include it in my show notes and Sass, if you don't mind including it in it's called Your Emotional Eating Blueprint. And yeah, Sass, anything else you want to say before?
Well, I guess I would just add, like, I think some of the things that I'm learning about are really, like you said at the start, there isn't really a hero's journey here because so much of the work I've kind of been doing over the last decade. But one of the ways that I like to work with people is through like reflective journaling and self-reflection work. And so if you're interested in exploring how to develop your self-belief, like one of the ways I do this is through a journaling practice each month. Yeah, it's like the cost of a couple of coffees, and I'll include the link to join me on that. It's hosted on Substack. It's super fun. It's a lovely community there too. So yeah, we can work together too if that feels good to you.
I'm so glad you included that, because I think we're in a period where we all need to be doing some deep reflection.
Yeah. God bless America.
We need some guidance.
Yeah, we do.
I don't think it's from daddy, though. Oh, thank you, Sas, for being you.
Yeah, you too, love. This is fun.